Alright, what's good, ladies and gentlemen? We are into Season 3. Let's see what the actual tournament meta is going to look like, because it's very different from pubs and ranked, which we currently are basically the only thing we played since there's not been a tournament on yet. First most important part is the mythics and medallions. Now, if you played pubs, if you played ranked, you'll see that they kind of rotate all the way around the map in a seemingly random order. It seems like one of two of them will be in kind of driving around in the cars, and then there'll be another one which will be situated in one of the POIs. In tournaments, this is actually not the case. They are always located in the three new POIs to the south of the map: Redline Rig, Brutal Beachhead, and the Nitro Dome. So firstly, Redline Rig. This is basically going to be the Grim Gate, I imagine, of this season, where you have the Machinist Combat AR, which does like 220 damage per second. It is truly insane. You have the Machinist Medallion, which gives you infinite shield, up till it charges up to, I think, 75 total. So with those two items alone, you're already looking at being the most stacked team in the lobby. So number one drop spot, I imagine, for basically all of the best teams like Peterbot and Poyo, who have already tried to claim it. Next is Brutal Beachhead, which is the one to the southeast, where you can fight Megalodon. Now, you can get two main items here and a medallion. The first one is the Nitro Fists, the mythic ones. Difference between this and the regular ones are just it basically has an extra charge, which does come in handy for rotations. The medallion gives you infinite nitro, which we'll talk about later, because man, that is some busted stuff. And then there's also the mythic combat shotgun, which is also very, very good. My theory here is that Nitro Fists are the main rotation item. The medallion's crazy for rotation running in boxes. And then the combat shotgun is one of the best items you can have just as a shotgun by itself. It doesn't necessarily need to carry like a spray weapon or something. So for solo cash cups, I think Brutal Beachhead is probably going to be the drop spot to go for, I would imagine. Now, the last one is Nitro Dome, which is basically very strange the way this works competitively, because it's seemingly not that great if you're going to play something like a Cash Cup Opens, solo Cash Cup Opens in particular, maybe lower levels of FNCS, because this gives you the Boom Bolt and then the Medallion, which gives you infinite ammo. Now, infinite ammo is amazing, of course, because it just allows you to just continually spray forever, which is very, very strong. But when combined with the Boom Bolt, you can essentially just grief anyone in the lobby. You just grab this, choose a target, just keep shooting them, and it'll continually destroy their builds, and they're going to have to run away infinitely. This is so broken for if you look at like the highest level of tournaments. We've just seen scrims right now where essentially all the best teams are just trying to get this, sit on height, and just spray the lobby. It is insanely broken in a way that definitely needs to be nerfed. I don't know what the right nerf for that would be, but regardless, it is insanely broken. Weirdly though, if you try to have done this in pubs or ranked, obviously because there's cars in those, inside the Nitro Dome, there's a lot of like vehicles driving around. It's kind of crazy, and you have to stay in there for a certain period before the boss actually spawns. In tournaments, the cars aren't there, so you just have to stand in this open arena for like 60 seconds, I think, before the boss one fights, which is just kind of strange, and the mechanic doesn't really work that well. So yeah, all three of those like mythic drop spots with the medallions are insanely strong this season. Other mythics, there's the hand cannon, a mythic you can get from the Loot Island, which does 185 headshot damage max, which is truly insane. I'm not actually sure if that's in tournaments yet. I've not been able to confirm that yet, so maybe that's just in ranked and pubs. Now, the other two which are not in tournaments are Oscar's Auto Shotgun and the Mythic Gatekeeper. You can buy both of these from NPCs, which NPCs are also not in competitive, so essentially you can't get them. Now, let's look into the main mobility item of the season, the Nitro Fists. Now, everyone's going to be carrying these because of they're essentially just like a katana from last chapter. So they're the main mobility item this season, which kind of makes it worse because the left click is so broken. So you can basically just stand on someone's walls, just hold left click and just spray into someone's box and just instantly kill them. You can kill duos just doing this by themselves. I've seen it happen. I've done it. I've seen it. Vico did it in a pro scrim as well, which is... They're just so busted. The problem is the casuals love this item. And I love using it in ranked, but as soon as it's used against me or in a tournament, it's a whole other story. So I don't know how you really want to balance these between the casual and the competitive side and keep both happy. My option is to disable the left click. That would be good in tournaments only, so you can just use it as a mobility item. On top of that though, my guy DJ, my duo Destiny's Jesus, showed a bunch of like tricks you can do with it. So essentially if you're 14-15 meters away, you can just dash straight into someone's box using the left click. And you can essentially, I think Boop also showed one where if you're like a tile below inside a cone, you can essentially just dash up and you'll land straight into their box. And if you do it with a team, so if you have like 4 people in the squad victory cups, so they're going to be on the Sundays, yeah, everyone's just going to do this. Hilariously, I think the funniest thing this season, regardless of if this gets nerfed or not in tournaments, will be watching the broadcast trying to avoid saying that players got fisted. Yeah, so good luck to them for that. Boom Bolt is another new item, which again, my guy DJ saw in a video where you can that's not even a word, where you can just wall replace with it, so you can just shoot it onto structure. I'm not sure what the structure damage is. Maybe it's I think I saw it was like 250 structure damage or 240 structure damage. I can't quite remember. So anyone like a wood wall, you can just shoot it down, hold your build out, and wall replace really, really easily, which is cool. And again, already mentioned the infinite ammo one's kind of insane. Without that, it's not that good for tournaments. Like it's sure it's a bit grief, but there's not that many rockets you can hold if you don't have the infinite ammo medallion. So Boom Bolt's fine. It's just very good for wall replacing, and outside of that, I'm sure there's some other strategies I haven't seen yet, but off the top of my head, not thought of any. Nitro, my god, this shit is crazy. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, it's already good by itself. So if you think like it gives you an increased sprint duration and speed that you sprint, so it's like a really buffed pepper. It's really good. Like that by itself would make it very, very strong. But why and you can also run on water like Jesus, which is kind of weird too. But why does it have a 300 structure damage? Like, why when you run into a wall does it cost 300 structure damage? Because that essentially means any freshly built metal or any fully built brick or wood you can just run straight through. There's already so many clips where it just looks dumb. To be honest with you, this kind of worries me that this was just put into the game in the current state that it's in, because like, how did no one think that 300 structure damage was a good idea? Genuinely, like, I don't know. It's nuts. If you don't have the nitro fists, basically using the nitro splashes for rotations in the endgame is probably your best bet, but that in itself is going to be really difficult because of the combat shotgun. So we'll come back to the shotguns later. That'll be the last thing we talk about. But yeah, nitro splashes are probably good if you have no nitro fists. If you have nitro fists, are maybe not that worth carrying, I would imagine. We will see. All right, next thing is map mobility. Now, on the map, of course, there's a ton of the kind of portals. Nitro portals, I think, is the correct name for them. And you've probably seen by now, if you've watched enough footage, if you combine them with the Flowberry Fizz, you can fly all the way across the map, which is awesome. There's also mid-map geysers, which I did not realize either. There's launch pads all around the map. There's dash water up in the northeast, northwest as well. So this season, there's also just a ton of map mobility generally that, obviously, as always, you can combine with Flowberry Fizz. Every single season, I always talk about this. This is like every video. It's impossible not to say the term Flowberry Fizz. So basically, one of the things I foresee because of that is that more players, in particular in open levels of solo cash cups and of dual cash cups, will probably find ways to play the Storm, play for heals for significantly longer, get better loot, and then jump out. So I'm predicting ahead of time that playing Storm will be much better this season in the meta. Of course, on top of that, there's these slurp plants that I kind of already mentioned in the south side of the map. Now, in the south side of the map, I've already mentioned it's incredibly strong to start with. You've got the 3 mythics with the 3 medallions, tons of metal, all of the nitro stuff's down there. Well, more of the nitro stuff is down there. Obviously, those portals are spread throughout the whole map. But also, you have surge plants. So the surge plants are obviously great if you get off spawn and you need some extra shields. You can plan like a looting path around that to give you a little bit more minis, some more shields generally. If you haven't noticed, by the way, they don't recharge in Storm, similar to the ones from Chapter 4, Season 4. Doesn't sound right, but wherever the last time slurp plants were in. But the one thing we learned massively about having slurp plants in the game last time was that people are just going to tower on top of them. So now, not only do you have all these strengths to the south side of the map in terms of weapons and loot, you're going to have the players down there who are probably going to be based up on these massive cringe Trulex bases, as we've already seen, with DMRs now having infinite slurp plants to trade surge with. So if you're a team that lands in the south of the map, you're probably going to have a much easier time getting damage for Storm Surge as well. So good luck if you land anywhere else in Grand Finals this season. That's my prediction again. More players in the south will do well. The flip side to that, however, is that if you're not so great of a player, and you don't want to land near all of the hotly contested teams, fight the teams that have the best loot in the game, you can just not land in the south side of the map. You can land somewhere else. And I do predict that this is probably going to be the most unbalanced in terms of players distribution seasons that we have ever seen. And lastly, the weapons and loot. Like, what should we be taking in the inventory? I can't remember. I had to take a break. I can't remember if I ended up actually saying this earlier, but shotguns is a really interesting one. I think there's 3 in the meta right now. So you have the pump, the gatekeeper. There we go. You got the pump, the gatekeeper, and the combat shotgun now, which is combat's new one. And I think for solos and solo cash cups in particular, I think the combat is going to be one that most players are probably going to main, because it's the one that really relies you on the least for taking a secondary weapon. You don't really need a spray weapon. You can just have the 8 bullets in that, and you can just kind of just spam out shots with it over and over again. Then they'll probably take the fists for rotation, and then triple heals. So I imagine that's going to be a loadout that a lot of players are going to be carrying. Maybe Gatekeeper's still going to be strong, because the reality is, if you get into someone's box and they have a combat and you have a Gatekeeper, it's so much easier for you to hit more damage with the 3 Gatekeeper shots than it is for them to hit 3 really good shots or 2 headshots with that tiny crosshair with a combat shotgun. So highly skilled weapon, which I like. There's also for duos, I think still combat is going to be good in at least one of the players' inventories, because I kind of think this is going to be like how the charge shotgun was. Because the combat has a lot more range, I see one player having, say, maybe a Gatekeeper or a pump, and the other player having the combat shotgun. So if you just open up an edit and you see players in endgame, like, you're going to be able to just do huge damage over and over from those kind of mid-ranges, which is really frustrating. So that's another reason why the fists are going to be so good for rotations, because you're going to have people using combat shotguns, and if you're sprint rotating or using Flowberry Fizz, you're just going to continue to get chunked for damage over and over and over again. Assault rifles, there's not too much difference. I think I can't remember, Enforce AR, that's the name of it, that's back, is actually really good, and I think for most levels, I think it's probably better than the Warforged AR. I haven't tested it like side by side. SMGs are all the same, already gone through a lot of the heals that are in as well. So I think that's about it for the loot. If there's anything I missed, which there probably is something, let me know down below. I'll be doing a full video on the resub channel soon. Have a good one.